Hi, I'm Jeanette Roche. This is Bridge City News. Here are some of the top stories we've been following. The death toll rises in Hawaii as wildfires continue to burn out of control. Plus, Canada's Environment Minister announces net zero regulations will permit some natural gas power generation. And the Lethbridge Canes lose head coach to Vegas Golden Knight affiliate.
Your nation. Your province. Your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Jeanette Roche.
Thanks for joining us. It's been a devastating few days in Hawaii. At least 36 people have now died in the Lahaina fire in Maui County. Crews continue to battle fires on both Maui and the Big Island, which have been fanned in part by strong winds from Hurricane Dora, a Category 4 storm. There are reports that the U.S. Coast Guard on Tuesday rescued 14 people, including 2 children, who went into the ocean to escape the blazes and smoke. The wildfires have destroyed or damaged more than 200 structures and forced thousands to evacuate, leaving people homeless and fleeing into the ocean on boats. And the full extent of the damage may not even be known for weeks or even months, according to Acting Lieutenant Governor Sylvia Luke.
I had an opportunity to fly with the Coast Guard this afternoon to see the devastating impacts firsthand. Just to fly over Kihei and continue to see the burning flames and see firsthand the impact on Lahaina and Lahaina town was just so shocking and devastating. It looked as if it's just the whole town was devastated. The whole town was decimated.
There's 3 conditions that we got from the National Weather Service. They call it a red flag alert. So that's dry conditions, right? So you got dry fuel, trees, plants. You got low humidity and high winds. And then the reason it spread so fast is there are reports of gusts of up to 85 miles per hour. So, you know, that is so fast. And that's why Maui County had such a hard time doing containment of the fire. And because the winds were so high, we couldn't provide the helicopters to do the water bucket support.
Ottawa released its clean electricity draft regulations today, and it included some provisions to allow for some natural gas power generation. The draft is designed to clean Canada's electricity grid and reach net zero by 2035. After facing pushback from Alberta and Saskatchewan, Environment Minister Steven Guilbeault says the federal government believes there's enough flexibility to accommodate the different energy needs of Canada's diverse provinces and territories, explaining this is not a fossil fuel-free grid by 2035. It's a net zero grid by that date. In addition, electrical providers don't have to start complying until 2035.
Canada, as I said, is a big country. The reality is different, certainly from an electrical perspective in different regions and different jurisdictions. So we certainly account for that. But I think the signal that we're sending, and that's one thing we've heard from investors, from energy companies, is tell us what the rules are, and we will comply with them. I was in Calgary just 3 weeks ago, and that basically what was the meeting I had with a number of representatives from the industry there. And that's true all across the country. They want to know what the rules of the games will be, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're giving them a lot of time to prepare for that, the 12 years. And hence the announcement today, although the regulations will only come into force 12 years from now.
Environment and Climate Change Canada says if the regulations are adopted, the national average household energy bill is estimated to increase by $35 to $61 per year. But it says only 2% of that increase will come as the result of the regulations. Federal officials say they expect increases to be offset as people move away from fossil fuels. A final version is expected to be published in January of 2025. Meantime, Alberta's Minister of Environment and Protected Areas, Rebecca Schultz, had some choice words regarding the proposed clean electricity regulations.
The draft regulations are unconstitutional, irresponsible, unrealistic, and would make life less affordable for Albertans and Canadians. They will not be implemented in our province, period. They can't. We are beginning our talks with the federal government, and if we can't get alignment, Alberta will chart its own path to ensure we have reliable and affordable electricity for the people we serve.
Schultz says the province is confident, however, that they can get Albertans to a reliable and affordable neutral power grid by 2050 and invites the federal government to support the province in this. Michelle Sterling is the Communications Director for Friends of Science, which is a group of professional engineers, geoscientists, solar and atmospheric scientists, and they review existing research and issue commentaries. She joins me now to weigh in on the federal government's proposed clean electricity regulations. Michelle, thanks for joining me. You know, I'm just going to jump right in here. In your opinion, is the net zero regulation by 2035 realistic? The feds are saying these rules won't need to be complied with until then, giving companies a bit of time to fall in line. What do you think?
It's completely unrealistic. Basically, the world itself runs on about 84% fossil fuels right now, with some nuclear in there, some hydro. You know, we can't phase it out overnight because all of our infrastructures are built around it. If we want to build more wind and solar, guess what you need? You need lots and lots of oil, gas, and coal because they're either the energy for making them or they are the elements, you know, like the wind turbine blades are made of all kinds of bonded resins and stuff like that, which comes from natural gas. So you'll just be increasing the amount of fossil fuels you use, not to mention they always need to be backed up by conventional supply, which is typically natural gas.
Okay, so Michelle, what is your biggest concern with all of this then?
If you look at last fall in Alberta, we had 7 grid scale level 3 grid alerts. These are imminent blackout alerts. And that's because if you look carefully at the various kinds of sources that we have on the grid right now, we have 1,000 megawatts less dispatchable power than we did in 2014. That's from coal phase out. But we have many thousands more megawatts of renewable power, and that creates an instability that's quite difficult to manage. So we've been importing power from Saskatchewan, importing from Montana, importing from BC. And the problem is the federal government wants to shut down the coal plants in Saskatchewan. Who will we import from? And they don't want to allow natural gas plants in Alberta.
Michelle Sterling, Communications Director for Friends of Science. Thanks so much for joining me today. Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland says she's laser focused on addressing the country's housing affordability crisis. Freeland was in Toronto today promoting Ottawa's first home savings account. It's a tax-free account meant to help buyers save for a down payment, and it's currently available at 7 financial institutions. Freeland says she hopes it will become more widely available.
I have 2 messages about the First Home Savings Account today. One is to be sure that young Canadians are aware that this exists, and it's not going to solve all their problems. I am not claiming that. But it's a little bit of help, and I want people to know that that help is there. And also a message to Canada's financial institutions that this is a savings, a way to save, that young Canadians, you know, they're voting with their money. They're putting their money into these first home savings accounts at the institutions that make it available. It would be great to see this first home savings account more readily available across the country.
A search for possible unmarked graves at a former residential school in Saskatchewan has found 83 areas of interest. Many of the sites at the Bouval Indian Residential School were labeled as child-sized or sub-adult. English River First Nation Chief Jenny Wolverine says 12 were a size consistent with the burial of infants. Wolverine says that's in line with survivor stories about babies being born and dying at the school. More sites that have been identified by survivors will be searched using ground-penetrating radar over the next year. Additional charges have been laid against an Edmonton teacher previously charged with child luring and child pornography offenses that he committed in Florida against a teen. Brendan Gorman, 27, was arrested in May in St. Albert, Alberta, and rearrested again in July in Florida for offenses relating to his online engagement with a 14-year-old. Gorman has been charged with additional counts of child luring as well as making, transmitting, and possessing child pornography. He's been released from custody with numerous conditions and is scheduled to appear in court August 14th. The Coaldale RCMP says they'll have to rely on a variety of different channels to disseminate their message to public now that Meta has removed all news for Canadian users. Some Canadian police agencies say Meta's decision to remove news links from social media will affect the way they share information, as they soon won't be able to rely on local news popping up in people's online social media feeds when Meta completes the removal of all news for Canadian users. RCMP's Corporal Kim Chamberlain issued this statement to Bridge City News. Quote, the RCMP continues to publish its content on a variety of channels to communicate with the public about investigations and public safety issues. Social media is used in addition to establish methods such as news releases and press conferences to raise awareness, solicit assistance from the public, and investigations and issue safety messages. We advise Canadians to check the RCMP's website for official statements and verified information. Further, we value our long-established relationship with members of the media who are critical partners in helping to keep the public informed of developing issues in a timely manner. Brent Kissio, the winningest head coach in Lethbridge Hurricanes history, has announced that he will be stepping away from the club. Kissio accepted a new position with the Henderson Silver Knights, who are the AHL affiliate team for the Las Vegas Golden Knights of the NHL. Kissio says the decision to leave the team came quickly for him.
We're pretty close to camp, and I was getting excited for the season here and getting ready for it, and just got a phone call from Henderson, and an opportunity opened up there to go there and coach in Vegas and be part of the Henderson Silver Knights, and to get an organization like that and to be a part of a team that just won the cup, and it's exciting. It's real exciting. It's obviously bittersweet leaving Lethbridge, a place that my family's grown to know as home. We love it here. My family will stay here. I'll go there my first year by myself, but this is home to us. So leaving here and leaving great people is always hard, but in coaching, you got to try to push yourself. You got to try to move up, and this will be another step in my career.
Kissio coached with the Canes for 8 years and brought the group to a playoff berth in each year that he was at the helm. Ultimately, the team was not able to bring home a WHL championship during his tenure. The last time the Canes won, it was the 1996 to 97 season. Lethbridge's newest community gathering place is officially open after nearly 2 decades of planning and visioning and more than 2 years of construction. The Agri-Food and Hub Trade Center opened its doors. Media were invited to a grand opening ceremony Thursday afternoon, which featured speeches from federal, provincial, and local dignitaries. BCN's Micah Quinn will have that full story on our Friday newscast. A public open house is scheduled this Saturday from 10 till noon. Wednesday marked the 78th anniversary of the Nagasaki bombing. The U.S. military detonated a powerful atomic bomb over the Japanese city of Nagasaki, ultimately killing close to 100,000 people, nearly all civilians. Here in Lethbridge, Eric Granson with the Nikayuko Japanese Garden says there are a number of Japanese residents in southern Alberta that have memorable connections to the tragedy.
It's just so impactful and devastating regardless of what the connection is. And we really like to support and nurture those feelings and any hurt and anything like that, and educate people on that hurt and what happened, to then maybe help educate people to realize on how terrible it was and prevent something like this happening in the future. And I believe that if we continue to educate everybody on everything that has happened, we can then work towards preventing things happening in the future.
The Nagasaki bombing took place August 9th, 1945, just 3 days after the infamous Hiroshima bombing. Staff with the Helen Schuler Nature Center recently unveiled a brand new exhibit called The Nature of Play. Corinne Putman, the manager of the center, says this is an exciting time for the group as kids will now be able to come and play whenever they want.
I think certainly most people understand that when you engage in physical play, it's good for your muscles, but it's also really, really good for your brain and a lot of your major organs. Those are set up for people to sit and kind of be creative, and whether it's creating like little mini habitats or creating kind of like pieces of very nature-based art, you know, kind of the sky's the limit. We tried to set the exhibit up so it's not super prescriptive, that it's really quite open-ended, and kids and all age visitors seem to be like figuring it out. It's been a lot of fun.
The exhibit will be open to the public for the next 6 months at the Helen Schuler Nature Center. Well, Virgin Galactic blasted off to the edge of space today. The rocket-powered plane took off from Spaceport America in the New Mexico desert. The first space tourists included a former British Olympian who bought his ticket 18 years ago, if you can believe it, and a mother-daughter duo from the Caribbean. And if all goes well, Richard Branson's company will start offering monthly trips to customers on its winged space plane, joining Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin and Elon Musk's SpaceX in the space tourism business. The cost for a trip to space via Virgin Galactic, it's only $450,000. Nothing to worry about there. You know, save up your pennies for that nice little summer vacation, I guess. So when we return from break, I will give you all the weather details locally and nationally. We'll be right back. Welcome back. In Lethbridge, we are expecting to see a few showers this evening, a 60% chance actually, and looking at a risk of thunderstorms as well. As we get into Friday, though, mainly clear skies, 26 for a high of 25. As we get into the weekend there, mix of sun and cloud, 25 also for Sunday. Should be a lovely weekend, though, clear skies. And then as we get back into the work week there, Monday, 30 degrees all the way up to 31 on Tuesday. Wow, and then 30 degrees on Wednesday. So we're getting to be higher than that average high for this time of year, especially as we get into the work week next week. Average high for this time of year, 26, average low, 11 degrees. 37 was our high temperature back in 2003. And in 1997, we were sitting at only 1 degree. 6:14 is when the sun rose this morning and sunset this evening. Look at that, we're in the 8 o'clock hour already, 8:58 p.m. I really noticed it last night when it was already super dark by 9:30, so I'm noticing the change for sure. Clear skies on the west coast tomorrow. Victoria, 20 degrees, high of 23 in Vancouver, 22 for a high in Edmonton. Calgary looking at a high of 25 degrees as well with clear skies. Now Calgary also could be seeing those thunderstorms this evening. And as we get to the rest of the prairies here, let's look at what's happening in Saskatoon. A high of 21 degrees with a mix of sun and cloud. Regina could see a high of 21 degrees, could see a slight chance of showers later in the day. 60% chance of showers though in Winnipeg tomorrow with a risk of a thunderstorm, high of 22 degrees, and could see some gusty winds there as well. Mainly sunny skies though in Toronto expected tomorrow, high of 26 degrees, mainly cloudy, and Ottawa high of 23 and 23 for a high, and Montreal as well as we look at a mix of sun and cloud there. Lots of precipitation expected on the east coast tomorrow. Fredericton actually looking at 20 to 30 millimeters of rain. 50 millimeters expected in the areas where there are thunderstorms expected, 20 for a high there, 21 in Halifax, also seeing 20 to 30 millimeters of rain expected later on in the day. Charlottetown looking at a chance of showers as well, 5 to 10 millimeters, high of 21 degrees, and 23 in St. John's. St. John's seeing a 30% chance of showers. So there you have it. That is your forecast. Air Canada has been ranked last in on-time performance among the 10 largest North American airlines. A new report from Aviation Data from Cirium shows the country's biggest air carrier landed about half of its flights on time in July. WestJet placed 7th as it saw 62% of its trips make it to the gate on time. The top performer was Alaska Airlines with 82% and Delta Airlines following closely with 79%. Canadian Tire saw a drop in second quarter earnings and revenue, which it says is due to cautious consumer spending. The company says it's withdrawing its sales growth target because of increasing pressure caused by inflation and higher rates. The Toronto-based retail giant said net income attributable to shareholders fell 32% to $99.4 million in the three-month period ending July 1st. The 101-year-old company also says second quarter revenue fell 3% to $4.26 billion from $4.40 billion the previous year. And Cineplex saw net income mushroom to $176.5 million in the second quarter. It was a sharp turnaround from the more than $1.3 million the Toronto-based theater giant earned in the same period last year. Chief Executive Ellis Jacob says the lift was the result of a continued rebound from the COVID-19 pandemic. In a statement, Jacob also says the company's third quarter is off to a sensational start with Barbie and Oppenheimer leading the charge there. Now here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was up 67 points on the day to finish at 20,342. The Dow was up 52 points to 35,176. The S&P 500 was up a point to 4468, and the Nasdaq was up 15 points to finish at 13,737. West Texas Intermediate oil was down $1.58 to $82.82 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 20 cents to $2.76 US. Gold was down $1.97 to $19.1249 US an ounce, and silver was up 4 cents to $22.70 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $10.53 per bushel, barley is at $8.38, canola is at $17.21, and corn is at $9.80 per bushel. Live cattle were up 53 cents to $181.10. Feeder cattle were up 85 cents to $2.48. Lean hogs were up 8 cents to $101.73. And the Canadian dollar was even over the past 24 hours at 74.36 US.
Recapping one of our top stories, the deadly wildfire on the Hawaiian island of Maui has prompted a travel advisory for Canadians. The blaze has largely destroyed the town of Lahaina, killing at least 36 people. Global Affairs says people should avoid non-essential travel to Maui and warns Canadians already on the island to think about leaving. Air Canada says the travel situation to Maui remains, quote, dynamic and evolving given the ongoing fires. The airline is planning to send a second empty plane to the island this evening after the first emergency ferry flight returned to Vancouver this morning. And up next, Drew Barnes, a former independent MLA for Cypress Medicine Hat, joins Naveen Day to discuss hot topics in Alberta politics, such as the federal emissions target. And if you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. We'd love to hear from you. And if you missed any of today's stories, be sure to visit our website, bridgecitynews.ca.
Here's today's Bridge City News community calendar. On August 11th and 12th, Coaldale is celebrating Summerfest. This annual event kicks off Friday with a movie in Millennium Park. Come enjoy free pizza served by the Town Council at 7 p.m. with Dee's Eats food cart serving popcorn, hot dogs, and pop during the movie. Then on Saturday, enjoy the Knights of Columbus pancake breakfast at 8 a.m., Coaldale's Candy Parade at 11, followed by a Battle of the Bands at the Atco stage and other live performances at the Town stage, plus the Coaldale Custom Cruisers Show and Shine, a barbecue, an open-air market, a kids zone, then end the best Summerfest ever with a fantastic fireworks display choreographed to music. It is one huge family-friendly party at the Coaldale Summerfest, August 11th and 12th. Lethbridge Sport Council's Outdoor Roving Gyms program is taking place Tuesdays at 10 to 11 a.m. and Thursdays 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. This program is for kids aged 5 and under and their caregivers. Come and enjoy an hour of fun and get active. The location of each roving gym alternates between Legacy Park, Gyro Spray Park, and Henderson Lake Park. Locations of weekly roving gyms can be found online at lethbridgesportcouncil.ca/roving-gyms. Advanced registration is required as space is limited. And that's today's Bridge City News Community Calendar.